Next on Newsmax Prime, an insult to our intelligence and an assault on our intelligence gathering. 50 spies blow the whistle on intelligence they say was altered to fit President Obama's political agenda. And speaking of politics, Donald Trump's rise in the polls continues even as he serves up rhetorical smackdowns of Carly Fiorina and Ben Carson. And is there no justice? The Department of Justice now claims Hillary's private emailing was completely legal. Newsmax Prime starts right now. Good evening and welcome into Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Of prime interest tonight, the revolt of the spies. That's what it's being called after more than 50 intelligence analysts working out of the U.S. military Central Command have formally complained that their reports on ISIS and al-Qaeda's branch in Syria were altered by senior officials, according to a report in the Daily Beast. Our Miranda Khan has more from the Newsmax Prime newsroom. Miranda?
JD, these intelligence experts say they're hired to honestly assess the battle against ISIS, but what they say they're seeing instead is senior officials twisting those reports into what they call happy talk. And the exact words of one unnamed official, the cancer was within the senior level of the intelligence command. 2 senior analysts have now filed a formal complaint as a result, and so far, it's received the support of more than 50 other analysts, some of whom have complained about the alleged politicizing of intelligence reports for months now. The report also shows that analysts believe their reports are being manipulated to maintain that public narrative put out by the Obama administration, and that is that we are winning the war against the Islamic State. Now, you may recall back in 2014 when President Obama called ISIS the, quote, JV team in a print magazine interview. Well, here's what he had to say when NBC's Meet the Press host Chuck Todd pressed him on what he said about the intelligence back then.
Long way from when you described them as a JV team. Was that bad intelligence or your misjudgment?
Keep in mind, I wasn't specifically referring to ISIL. I've said that regionally, there were a whole series of organizations that were focused primarily locally, weren't focused on the homeland, because I think a lot of us, when we think about terrorism, the model is Osama bin Laden and 9/11.
Now, going back to that written complaint, the word Stalinist was used to describe the tone set by senior Obama administration officials overseeing the military's intelligence and analysts. 2 of the officials reportedly told the Daily Beast that analysts began airing their complaints last October in an effort to address the issue internally and only went to the Inspector General when that effort failed. The report also says some of those who complained were urged to retire, while others left on their own. We will continue to follow the story and bring you the very latest developments. Back to you.
Thanks, Miranda. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined now via Skype from Tampa by Col Derek Harvey, former intelligence officer and former senior advisor to General David Petraeus. Colonel Harvey, currently the director of the Global Initiative on Civil Society and Conflict. Derek, as always, thanks for your time here on Newsmax Prime.
Yes, JD.
Now, you have served as a senior analyst. You were in the trenches with the magnifying glasses and electronic enhancements and trying to put everything in context. What is your reaction to what we've heard about these analysts rising up and giving voice to whistleblower-like complaints?
Well, the report, if true, is very unfortunate, and it's very disturbing because we should have learned our lessons over the last decade or more about problems of politicizing intelligence or trying to shape intelligence to fulfill some political goal or something like that. And we've had challenges with groupthink. We've had challenges with things being politicized and being told at different times not to produce on certain subject areas because it was inconvenient. That's happened in the past. We don't really know what the details are of this, but at times there is a reason for taking a good look at the analysis and the production and verifying sources, challenging logic, methodologies. But if those things are squared away, there's no reason for a senior leader to change that analysis or prevent it from being produced and disseminated. if they have a question, they can provide their own commentary about it and put it in their own perspective. It might be including operational perspectives that provide some larger context, but they should not be changing that analysis or preventing it from being disseminated.
Derek, it seems to me as a layman that intelligence gathering and intelligence interpretation is a bit like trying to predict the weather, the operative term being predictive. You take a look at information you're able to get your hands on in the context in which it's delivered, see how the puzzle pieces fit together, and try to make rational assessments from that point. What these folks are saying in everyday language is they were asked to change those assessments, in part perhaps to protect careers or certainly to protect perhaps a political point of view.
Well, that is what the Inspector General is going to have to get to the bottom of and determine by looking at the reporting, verifying what was going on, what was said, what was rumored to have been said, that type of thing, and get to the bottom of it. It's incredibly important for the integrity of the intelligence process. And importantly, the question I have is, how did these things impact decisions if, in fact, it was changed and it changed the analysis and what was provided to policymakers? What was the impact on specific operations or policies if they weren't getting what was accurate information?
And the question I have just boils down to this, Derek: who done it? Where does the responsibility rest? At 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue with President Obama, or with the director of the entire intelligence apparatus, John Clapper? Who do you believe in the final analysis needs to be held accountable?
Well, it has to be determined whether or not it was actually changed, and as the allegations have been reported in the Daily Beast. But I would think they're going to look at the kinds of communication that occurred between the Director of National Intelligence, the DNI's mission manager for the campaign against the Islamic State, and others, and how they may have had unintended corrosive impact on the leadership at CENTCOM, or if they had more of a directive type relationship where they tried to shape that intelligence, challenge it, and convince leaders at CENTCOM not to produce it. It may have been something just internal. It could be just a debate between those that are analysts and seniors that have, larger perspective, other information, and they were trying to bring balance to it. That has to be determined at this point.
Well, that's a very judicious approach, but here we sit only hours from the anniversary of the deadliest terror attack on U.S. soil, and to sit down and have to go through, forgive me, what seems to be a form of bureaucratic gyrations to find out what's going on, seems to me to suggest that our entire intelligence apparatus is still in jeopardy. Is that overstating the case?
I think there are challenges across the board in the intelligence community with still problems of stovepiping, lack of collaboration and coordination between the 16 different agencies, and importantly, between those who need the information to take action and not being able to get that information to people who are going to act in the field on that information. We still have some challenges in that arena, for sure.
45 seconds left. There are reports that Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri has declared war on the ISIS caliph al-Baghdadi. Is that something that we can exploit? Well,
it'll be difficult for us to exploit it, but it has been clear for the last 2 years that the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, Jabhat al-Nusra, and others, that there is a fight for leadership of these extremist, ideologically driven Sunni Arab groups. And it is something that we've not been able to take advantage of over the last 2 years. We have to acknowledge it, and at a certain point in time, there may be something we can do to aggravate the situation. And those get into tactics and procedures and operations that I don't think I want to talk about.
Wisely stated, Colonel Derek Harvey. Sir, we thank you for your assessment. Now, As you know, Dr. Ben Carson is rising in the political polls, even tied with Donald Trump in some surveys, but a whole lot of folks don't really know Dr. Carson. But you've got a chance to get his #1 New York Times bestseller, One Nation, where he reveals his plans for the presidency, and you can get it by calling 1-800-655-7567 or going to newsmax.com/Ben.